Now, most of us have heard of Chimamanda Adichie, the Nigerian novelist, and she wrote a small book called We Should All Be Feminists. So that provides the starting point on the flip side of why men should also be feminists. I think it should not only be seen as the role of women changing society on their own, but also getting a supportive role from men. But then, I think you can. Back to the critique. The whole notion of male feminism is viewed as an oxymoron. It's like it's a contradiction, because a lot of scholars talk about it being a form of appropriation. It's like we are stealing the concept of feminism from women, and therefore men cannot play a part. It is also seen as a veiled form of patriarchy. We want to control the narrative by controlling it, although we are pretending to be in support of it. And then there's the concept of separatist feminists. If you have read a little about feminism, there are those feminists who say, no, we need to create a totally separate world from men and lead our lives on our own. So these women argue that there's need to completely reject all male perspectives in order to define the concept as totally belonging to women. And they argue that because men do not suffer the same forms of oppression as women and girls, then they don't have an entitlement to claim to be male feminists. Therefore, men must not pretend to comprehend the oppression narrative of girls and women. So Chimamanda Adichie has said that we should all be feminists, meaning that we should all be included in the narrative as both men and women. And proponents such as Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, has also argued that men must identify with the feminist movement as part of universalizing the movement and not confining it to the ideas of women alone. And in order to end the sexual oppression, one must address the need for male oppressors to also address the issues. Therefore, men must be pro-feminists in their outlook. And this is centered on the belief that we are all created equal, and therefore, to address the issues pertaining to feminism, we must do it together. Now, as the way forward, what do we do? I think in order for male privilege to be deconstructed by those who perpetuate oppression towards women, there's need for men to also understand how they become sexist, and they need to be told by the women. Male feminists also recognize that we need to listen to female voices, because as men, we are limited on how we speak with authority on issues pertaining to women. We cannot pretend to know what it's like to have a period or to give birth to a child. Therefore, we need to listen and not critique the movements of women. We also don't know what it's like to be sexually harassed on the street, or at university, or raped in the workplace, or raped at a school by a teacher, or at home by a father or a brother. But that should not be an excuse for us as men to not demand for male accountability. So, as male feminists, we also must avoid determining the identity of being allies to women. I think it's women who should tell us that, yes, you are a true feminist because you are aligning yourself to our cause. Additionally, addressing issues of masculinity is not only the role of women, it is also the role of male feminists once we are identified as such. Male privilege must be used to advance gender equality under the guidance and leadership of women. So we must not define gender on our own terms, but we should create the space for women to define it according to the issues that are emerging. So as a starting point, we need to take collaborative action on sexual harassment and abuse in the workplace. We also need to focus on issues pertaining to sexual exploitation in schools, not only by teachers, but also by male students who harass girls. For instance, why are girls expelled when they're pregnant, and yet the boys who made them pregnant in the first place are allowed to go scot-free? We also must explore the oppression narratives as they pan out in the areas of disability. For instance, a person with albinism, who is a girl or a woman, faces the added challenge of exploitation in the community. So we also need to broaden the scope of the debate. And the oppression narratives in the institutions of patriarchy, because I've argued that we need to change the way we think about our institutions, this chieftaincy, the church, the schools, the private sector and government, and how they address the issues of patriarchy and oppression. I thank you. That was my brief presentation.